always block ourselves by false beliefs, limiting beliefs. We cannot do it, limiting knowledge, no funds, whatever. Just do it. And then I tell them always follow three secrets. The power of leverage. You need to learn when you jump into this ocean, you need to learn how to leverage other people's knowledge. Example, watching this podcast or reading books, whatever. Other people's knowledge.
Welcome to the Bulletproof Cashflow podcast. Let's get into the show.
Hey everyone, this is Agostino. I know that for many of you out there, you visualize success in real estate, but you may sometimes feel that something's holding you back. Oftentimes, it's our own limiting beliefs that creep in and sabotage our ability to succeed. What we must do is apply a great deal of effort in educating ourselves and following a plan of success. Well, today's guest understands this very, very well. While working in corporate America in 2008, he got a wake-up call to escape the rat race and used real estate as a means to make that escape. He got to work setting up a clear investment plan and got to work building a blueprint to build a financial future for himself and for his family. Fast forward to today, and what he's done is just that. He is now an award-winning best-selling author in the categories of personal finance and business, and of course, real estate investing. He's a self-made employee millionaire with over 10 years of industry experience investing in rental properties throughout Asia, Dubai, and Europe. He's also the founder of Employee Millionaire, a company that empowers employees to achieve financial freedom and become millionaires with real estate investing. Now, with all that, I'd like to welcome H.J. Chammas to the show. H.J., thanks for coming on, bud.
Hey, Agostino, thanks for having me on the show. It's a real pleasure to be here. And hopefully we can add, some great value to the listeners and have some fun in the process, yeah?
I think we will. Now, if you guys like what HJ has to say, you can reach him through his contact page at employeemillionaire.com. And if you like our content, please don't forget to leave a comment and rate the show. It helps us out tremendously when you do. Finally, if you text the word freedom to 202-410-4202, you get our free ebook, The Bulletproof Guide to Finding a Broker. Okay, HJ, go ahead and tell the listeners a little bit about how you got your start in real estate.
Yeah, Agostino, like as you said, in 2008, it was the global financial crisis at that time. I was sitting in my office. It was like few weeks before Christmas at that year. And I really recall my colleagues, my peers being called to the HR office and being asked to leave their job, just to clean their desk and leave. At that time, really, I was like going to hide my head in the drawer or somewhere, maybe I'm next. What if this happened to me? I couldn't really sustain a living because at that time back then, I was really poor. They had a lot of debt, no savings at all. So it was like a deep shit situation. So it was a wake up call for me. I needed to take control of my life. I needed to make a change. So I started to read books, attend seminars, watch courses here and there. But also because, when was ready, I met a mentor. I was at that time based in East Asia and the Philippines. I met an American mentor. His name is Papa Joe. He was living between Asia and the Philippines. And I was really after him. I wanted to learn from him how to become like him, a wealthy entrepreneur. And he taught me how to invest in rental properties. So I started with one bedroom apartment in Manila in the Philippines. And, at that time I started to earn a passive income. Then I said, holy shit, I could use the bank's money. I could earn passive income and somebody is there to coach me. Now I have a process. I had, a blueprint to follow. So I started repeating the process, one property at a time. And then in 2010 or 11, I moved to Dubai and I started to repeat the same process. It took me 7 years really to move from a state of financial disaster, as I would call it, to being financially independent. And at that time, I could take a decision to leave my job and focus really on my property portfolio and expand to Europe and invest also in some other countries. And then 2 years ago, I launched a book. It became an international bestseller. It won also multiple awards. Then I said, you know what? Let me now open a company to reach more people and to coach them how to do that in a simple way. Because usually the gurus talk about something, it's difficult to achieve. They talk in millions. I talk in small pieces. I talk in single family residential homes that anybody could jump on board, anybody could do it. Because if I could do it, trust me, anyone can do as well.
Right. Well, I think going all the way back though, when you were doing the whole corporate thing, right? You're doing the corporate thing and it's like you're worried about your job. You're worried if you're gonna have a job tomorrow, right? And you see everybody falling apart around you and you're like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do with my family? What if this boss taps me on the shoulder one day and says, "I need to see you in the office," and hands you your pink slip to get out. That's it's a very scary. It's very scary for many people. I mean, I used to be one of those guys too, right? And I
Yeah,
think it's safe to say, though, for both of us now sitting on the other side of that fence, that you would never be doing. You're never going to be in that position ever again, right? It's
no,
not. It's not
no.
even. It's not even. It's not even. It's not even within the realm of possibility anymore. I know it isn't for me.
Exactly. However, anybody with a job who's currently in a situation with a job, they could leverage that because, and we can talk about this more in the show today. Being employed, it means for in the eyes of the bank, you have a steady income. And guess what? Banks love to give the loans to people with a steady income. So you could leverage that, borrow money from the bank, but of course, money not to buy a Ferrari, no, to buy income producing assets, to buy assets that will pay you passive income so that you can start increasing your net worth and your wealth so that you can arrive to a point, to ditch that job that you don't like, or even if you love it, you could stay in a job that you love, but at least you have a peace of mind that you're not depending on it. You just love what you do, but you have a passive income that will carry you for your life.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, the bank just loves seeing that you have that steady income coming in. Yeah, definitely leverage it. So, but at that time though, it sounded like you're just trying to figure things out, right? You're going from maybe webinar to webinar, meeting to
Exactly.
meeting, doing all that stuff. Would you say that you are not very focused then? Like you knew you wanted to do something in real estate, but you weren't really focused, right?
Yeah, like I knew what I wanted to do, and at that time, real estate made a lot of sense to me because it's the tangible asset. The banks would love to lend you money to against the property. However, it was something really like big. I didn't have the knowledge, and also I didn't have the starting capital because you need a certain down payment. But then I learned that you don't even need that down payment if you follow certain what I call them hacks. You could get maximum leverage and stay protected. So the thing was my own mindset. I was being my own enemy. I was having my fear of losing, the fear of failure, and also the fear that I don't know what to do. But then when you educate yourself, when you have somebody on your side like a coach or a mentor, it becomes easier, man, because you know that there's somebody who's going to guide you. You have the knowledge, and you know that you could leverage other people's knowledge, connections, time, and even money. And leverage for me is key in your way to become an investor.
Yeah, yeah,
Specifically,
yeah.
if you're starting from zero in a way, yeah.
That's right. Well, I think knowledge is that bridge, right? That bridges the uncertainty gap that many people have, right? They're sitting on
Indeed,
this side
indeed.
of the bridge, and they're like, I don't know what to do, and it kind of keeps them steady to do nothing, basically. Versus that freedom that they want, or at least a step towards freedom. It's really that knowledge is that what bridges the gap. But aside from, or even before, you found that mentor, which it sounded like that was what it really took to break you loose. I mean, you made the investment of time and money, right? And this probably wasn't a cheap
Exactly.
mentor either. It wasn't a cheap guy. I'm sure it wasn't that. But uh, but it sounded like you had to really make that decision, right? And do you think that maybe that comfort is what held you back before you can actually make that decision to really make that investment in yourself and in that mentor?
Indeed, man. Indeed. I think you're reading my mind. Yeah. You're reading my history because, we always get, I believe, like slaves to our comfort zone. We get used to our reality, even though sometimes we dread it. So I recall at that time, I was dreading Mondays. I was dreading going to a job. I was dreading my boss going to give me some orders what to do. I was dreading all of that, but still, it was kind of a comfort zone because I knew that back then I would earn my income at a certain at a certain date on every month. And for me, it was a comfort zone. But in reality, I knew that I never had enough time. Trust me, I wanted at that time to take some off to spend with my family. And I often had to fight with them because I couldn't give them the time they deserved. Even when I wanted to buy stuff, I couldn't afford. So although I was on my comfort, I was there in my comfort zone. I knew that I was not really living the life. I didn't have time, I didn't have money, I didn't have choices. Choices is so important, man, yeah, because you can choose what you want in life, but when you're confined in a certain comfort zone, your choices are limited. So you need to make this step out. You need somebody to hold your hand in a way. And this somebody could be a live person, it could be sometimes like watching this podcast. We try to share some knowledge, and people could use this knowledge as if we're helping them out. They could read books, they could do a lot of stuff. Information, no, we're in the age of information, is so much available. But now that's another problem, because also it becomes so confusing with too much information
Yeah.
out there. You have to select which information is the right one for you as well.
Yeah, well, it's the power of focus, right? I mean, after I left corporate America and I made the conscious decision to focus on real estate, it was I used virtual mentors to do it. That's the road I took. But I think I had no choice, so I
Yeah.
was very very disciplined with learning, and then I went the route of multifamily. But in your case, though, you found your mentor, you got on track, and you're now what you're doing these days is more of the single family realm, right? Maybe we can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, yeah. So why did I choose first of all single family route? So at that time, Papa Joe, my mentor, told me you need to start small. You don't directly jump in the big boat, and it's gonna be over your head. Start with a single family home. Learn the ropes of the trade. Learn real estate, because you need to know how to prospect, how to negotiate, how to purchase, how to finance, how to rent, how to manage, and all the stuff. Uh, you know. Then he told me, like, until such time you have enough properties under your belt, you could decide to move to multifamily. However, also what I've realized through my career, I always wanted to make this jump, and I own one multifamily, a small one, 12 units, not nothing major, but I enjoy more single family. And the reason is, as you've said from my background, I invested in Asia, in Dubai, throughout Europe, and that's for me is a kind of hedging, because if I put all my properties in one city or one economy, and economies always go up, and some cycles in the economy, I would be hit. So I started to think, instead of going big with multifamily units, maybe I could go big by spreading myself in different geographies, and then that way, if an economy goes down in certain country, at least I'm hedged, so I'm protected. At least my other properties and my other portfolio are still performing well, and they could cover for any diminishing rental income, so that I could sustain my passive income that could carry me. And and uh, and the more you become expert in it, the more it becomes now my new comfort zone. So now I created my new comfort zone, which I became so much comfortable. And now actually I'm challenging myself in the future to start going more into multifamily, because I know this is the way to scale it up. Because in single family residential homes, your biggest problem is management. Because let's compare it. If I have one multifamily unit, let's suppose it has 50 units or whatever, so I could have a single, I could manage it all from with a one team, one location, everything is manageable. I could, leverage economies of scale. However, when you do different residential units and in wider geographies, you need now to learn how to leverage teams. If I'm staying in Dubai and I have properties in Asia or Europe, I need to depend on team members. And this is, it's a skill by itself, how to work with teams, how to find the right team members. I call them always the dream team, so that you can depend on them, but within a certain scope of work. There's a game. They know what to do, and I need to make business reviews with them, and that's what I do. Every month we go on a small call. We by property or group of properties, and we see that what are the KPIs, are we performing well? What are the challenges? And we keep on improving our process, so that we always try to manage that the properties are producing positive cash flow. Because if you don't keep
Nice.
an eye on them, it might go down. So you need to really be in control.
That's right. That's right. No, I love it. Love it. So when you're having these different groups and you're doing those weekly calls, what sort of KPIs are you looking for on a regular basis?
Yeah, so we look at different things. First of all, from the rental income, we look at, are all the properties rented? So any vacancies? And if there are vacancies, what is the game plan? So what are you doing, guys? So that we can get them filled up properly quickly. And here, sometimes you need to make a decision. So and I'm a very in the way I work, I tend to be flexible. So sometimes I think I'd better lower the rent a bit, so that I avoid any vacancy, and then have a system to increase it over time, so that it gets back to whatever I want it to be. Because time lost or vacancy time is a it's a lost business. You lose income. And then from the rent, what I do is I try to see do we have any bounce checks, any issues? Do we have any tenants not paying? What are the issues? And we try to manage all of that. But thanks to our screening process, we have a very stringent screening process. We pre-qualify tenants before they join, by respecting, of course, all local laws in whatever country we operate in. But we really do a very good screening so that we make sure we have good quality tenants that will preserve the condition of the property, but also keep on paying on time. And then we look at the expenses level. We look at our operational expenses. The biggest headache, in my opinion, are the maintenance. The maintenance and the and preventive maintenance, or if you want to maintain something that has been, or you want to fix something, let's say, yeah. So for that also, we in each one in each city, let's say, we have three. Always we work with three suppliers that who are contractors, and we always make them bid for anything we need to maintain. So I don't go with the annual maintenance, because what I learned is when you pay annual maintenance, sometimes you overpay, sometimes you underpay. So it's uh, uh, especially if you have always preventive maintenance, you end up always overpaying them. So I always go by a job on a job basis, but because I'm with them for the long term, they always give me priority, and they always give me tight schedules, and always give me very competitive quotes. So we never compromise on quality, but we get competitive quotes for the great quality we're looking for. And the last thing we also look at are the interest rates, because not in every part of the world your interest rate on the loans are fixed. In many parts of the world, they are variable. So what happens, that they measure it for versus LIBOR or IBOR, and they put a certain premium. So what happens here with the banks, we need to always go back to them and renegotiate. So that's what we do. Every 1 or 2 years, we go back to the bank. We tell them we need to renegotiate the terms. Otherwise, I'm thinking about going to another bank. So being afraid of losing me as a business, they tend to always renegotiate the terms and lower the interest rate, sometimes extend the terms, the number of years, so that the rule of the game is how can I minimize my monthly installment so that my monthly cash flow from the rent keeps on increasing, and that's how we make money, because that's the end game for us.
Right. So there's a lot to unpack there. So let's talk about your local team then. So I know you just mentioned you have some stuff in Asia. So let's talk about that for a second. Finding your local team to run your assets is very, very difficult to begin with for anybody, right? And
It
I
is.
imagine you must have a large portfolio there. How do you locate those property managers? Or is it like it's all third party, meaning that's all managed by someone else, or are these like your in-house folks? Like who are those people?
They are my in-house folks. However, they're not on a salary. I pay them based on performance. So because if
Mm,
I give them a retain or a salary, they're gonna take it for the easy way out. So
sure,
it's
sure.
always based on performance. And what I do, I treat them the same way as I'm treating a third-party management company, property management company. But however, those are small players. They are the ones that want to grow. They want to open the future management company, and I help them out. So those people will try always to deliver the best possible, because they're after your business. So I'm big for them. But if I go to a big property management company, I'm too small for them. They wouldn't give me the same attention. Maybe they would give a person with multifamily properties and hundreds or thousands of properties. Yeah. So I go
Right.
after those small guys, and I educate them. So first of all, I interview them as if I'm employing them for a company. So I tend to know not only if they know what they need to do, but also their mindset. Because for me, the can-do attitude is very important. Because we're always going to have problems. And that's what's make us stronger, I believe. So attitude is very important. I want this can-do attitude. Uh, how ethical they are, it's very important. And the third thing is what they know, because I could teach them the process. It's not a big deal. But the know-how I could teach them. And then uh, what I do, as I told you, when we do those meetings on a regular basis to discuss the KPIs, this is for me performance. I measure their performance based on the KPIs they're gonna report to me, and I keep them on their toes, and that's how they get rewarded. Yeah. So
Yeah.
And maybe I will pay them the same as a management company, between 6 to 8%, depending on the city or whatever, from the rent, of course. But at least I get a lot of focus from them, and they do a pretty good job.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing, though. Everyone's got to realize is that buying the deal is super, super easy compared to running it profitably over the long term. That's hard. That's hard work to do. It's very hard work. It all comes down to running the operation, which of course, as Jay just talked about. But then also the second big part of this thing, the tenant, right? The tenant is huge, right? So getting the right tenant and not putting in a bad person that's going to tear the place up. So how do you figure
Exactly.
out what the right tenant is to live in that place? How do you figure that out?
Look, in my mantra, what I do is, when I work with my team, we need to find the right tenant at the right rental income at the right time. And those are very important three variables for me. So when we say right tenant, what we do is, when in our screening process, and when they fill up a certain application form, we tend to ask them not only where they used to live before now, even what the like is the previous property, and we tend to contact those landlords. And this is a great way for us to really ask about their history, and if they have any issue in payments, because not in all countries you can pull out a credit score for a person. You can do it in Europe, in the States, but when you go to Asia or Dubai or whatever, this information is not available. Yeah, so you need now to get kind of creative. How can you kind of construct the credit score for a person and know their history by really asking around? And then we ask them for their employment history. So we ask for some papers from their company, for how long have they been employed, and the salary certificate, just to make sure that the monthly rent will never exceed one third of their salary. Because for us, in our KPIs, if a person needs to pay more than a third, that means he's going to be in trouble at one point of time, and this will mean headache for us. So we try to help them out. If their income is low compared to the unit they want to rent, it's if they want to pay more than a third, for us it's a no go. However, we could advise them. We could have other properties, tell them that's too large for you. Why don't you reconsider this in another neighborhood, or a smaller property, so that it can match your income. Uh, and then we make them sign. So in our rental agreement, so we find them, then we set the rules. That's, for me, is very important. It's like, we call it the pit stop when you're in a race. We set the rules. So I make sure in my rental agreement, each city will have a standard template, which is guided by the local authorities, but also you have room for flexible clauses, and those are very important for me. I put very stringent clauses on payment. So if they miss to pay on time, I will have a penalty. So I will impose penalties on them. That's one. And because I have security checks, I will directly use them. So there is no we're not lenient here. We're very good with the tenants, but we're very strict. We give you the best. We give you the best kind of service, and you need also to play your part as well. And then what we do as well is, we put all those clauses on maintenance. And so I put maintenance as a minor or major, and we define them. Any minor maintenance should be covered by the tenant. In that way, they'll make their best to protect your property. If you do, as a landlord, all the maintenance on your cost, they're gonna be reckless. But if you make them, be part of it and become responsible, what they do now, no, they're gonna take care of the property, because it's gonna hit their pocket if they do something bad with the property.
Yeah.
And major is really like the ventilation, the pumping, the wiring, this kind of stuff is structural, which rarely happen. So we try to really make sure that they cover all the minor expenses, and this helps us in property operations. So we increase our cash flow by minimizing our cost, and we make sure we walk them through those clauses. They need to understand them and sign on them one by one. So not only to sign the whole rental agreement, but on those specific clauses, we ask them to really countersign each one of them, to make sure they understood them, and they fully, they feel they're gonna fully respect them.
Nice, nice. Now, here in the States, we have certain remedies to get rid of bad people, bad tenants, right? Like evictions, that kind of thing.
Yep, yep.
And in the countries that you're in, do you have similar sort of laws where you're able to evict and get rid of those bad people that are just messing up your investment?
Yes, yes. So what we do usually, I think a common standard. It's like standard approach across the world. So as soon as we have the proof that they're not paying or they're doing something wrong in the property or they're having some bad practices, be it drugs or prostitution or whatever. So if we have any of those proof, we directly go to the local authorities and we send them a notice, a written notice through the court, through the local courts, that they need to evict within a certain time frame because of X, Y, and Z. So we really spell it out. What are those reasons? And what the local authorities will do is, if they don't evict by those deadlines, they will bring the local enforcement police, and usually, but we never adapt to this extent. Whenever they get a notification, a notice from the local courts, usually they evict. Sometimes they ask us for, okay, they appeal, and I'm not going to repeat it anymore, and they sign. And sometimes, if it's a small problem, we could keep them. However, we tell them, you already have a warning. If this is going to happen again, we're going to be forced to apply the court's decision.
Hmm. Okay. All right. Now, and then the final thing you talked about was on the lender side, right? Which, of course, using leverage. I think you mentioned this too earlier at the beginning of the
Yeah,
podcast. Using leverage, using other people's money, you can buy into a deal, and of course, that's how we're able to make the margin
exactly.
in this business. This is super. Now, but you mentioned that you would go back to the lender and renegotiate it. Are you talking about refinancing, or is this something else?
No, no, something else. So, and maybe it's good to explain that. So, maybe let's go a step backward. If I put my money in the bank, I'm a liability for them because they're going to pay me interest. If I borrow money from the bank, it's an asset for the bank because when I pay them interest, that's how they make money. So if we think about it, banks are after us to lend us money, not to have our money deposited in an account, because they make money by giving us loans. So we are the preferred clients. And now they want to lend money to a person that could prove they could pay back, and also to have the assets collateralized by, like I mean the loan, to have a collateral on the loan. And for them, a property is really tangible. If something happens, they could repossess the property. So now, after I made the deal with them, and if, let's suppose, because I told you that they follow a certain bank rate and they put a margin on it, let's suppose the interest rate in this country went up. That means my total interest rate will be at one point of time high. That means my loan installments will get higher. That means my cash flow will get lower. And maybe it was not part of my forecasting when I first bought the property. And at that time, it will be a red line, a red flag for us. That means we need to do something, yeah? Part of the KPIs meeting, yeah? So what we do there, we tell them, hey, folks, if you don't if you don't like look at lowering the interest rate, so there is this the bank rates, and there is the margin. You could lower your margin, you make less money from me, but I'm there with you on the long run, and I don't have only one property. I have multiple properties with you guys. Yeah. So so if you don't do that, I might refinance now with another lender. So if I refinance with another lender, they're afraid, they're scared because they're gonna lose business. So to protect their interest, which is their income, what they do is usually they come back to me and they say, okay, we're gonna lower for a 12-month period your interest rate by 1 point or 1.5 points, depending on how big is the margin on the country, and usually it plays well. For example, in the Philippines, your interest rate on a property could go as high as 11 or 13%. Imagine. And in Dubai, it's 3 to 4%. It's similar to the States, yeah. So
Right.
in the
Right.
Philippines, I could negotiate a 4 points reduction, whereas in Dubai, I could negotiate maybe a point reduction in the interest rate. So it really depends on where you're operating, and you need to know as an investor that the the banks want your business. They want your business, and for that reason, you could go back and renegotiate the terms. And most often, you're gonna win because they want your business. They want the money, which is the loan installments and the interest you pay on those loans.
Well, I think it's also safe to say that if you're doing a lot of business with one bank, then they're going to be a lot more flexible to give you what you want, right? I think
Yeah,
it's safe to
exactly.
say too. It sounds like, yeah, yeah,
Exactly. But here there's also a word of caution to investors. Some banks set a limit on the maximum number of properties they're going to lend you from the same bank.
yeah.
So
That's right.
yeah, yeah. So what I always try to maximize it within the same bank. But guess what? From my experience, they're always going to break the rule for you. Because if you maximize the number of properties and you prove to for them, you pay on time, you don't have any issue on payment, and you're a great client, they always tell you, okay, you know what, we're gonna give you one more property as an exception. After you do this exception, they're gonna give you another exception, and it keeps on going. Yeah. So like I have
Right,
one bank in Dubai, their rule is four. They give you only four properties from the same bank. With the same bank, I already achieved 10. So imagine. So they could
right.
always break the rule. And by far, as long as you prove to them that you're a good asset to them.
Yeah, yeah. I think us as investors, we need to make sure that we're not putting all of our eggs in one basket, including the lender too. If you because you're putting your money, or rather your investments, with one smaller lender, and that lender goes out of business for whatever reason, we don't know why. I mean, in 2008, I don't even know how many banks went out of business back then.
Yeah.
But they were calling those loans, right? They were just
Yeah.
saying, okay, great, we're going to call the loans now. And if you just happen to have 20 loans with one bank and they call the loan, you're going to have to come up with all that money to
Exactly.
make it up,
Exactly.
right? So
Exactly.
yeah, us as investors, it's one of the things we ought to be looking at is who's making the loan, what sort of rates do we get. Unfortunately, here in the States, we have to negotiate all that and then do a refi. And it sounds like it's a little more expensive here in the States because you have to do the refi. They have to re-underwrite everything and new appraisals and all that stuff. But over in different places, way easier. So I'm not saying everybody begins doing an international investing today. If they do, we should reach out to HJ, and I'm sure he can help you out. That's for sure. So that's,
Yeah. So, and I think also, let's just add to the point is that uh, this is for me is kind of diversification. People say you have to diversify your investments. I always tell them no. I love properties, rental properties, and I focus on rental properties, but I diversify within rental properties. So I diversify if it's a townhouse, if it's a, apartment building, if it's an apartment unit or condominium, or it's within a city, another country, and that's how I diversify my portfolio. But my niche is always rental properties. That's what I breathe every day, and this becomes, as I mentioned earlier, my new comfort zone, which I understand fully understand in a doubt.
yeah. Well, hey, you know what? Warren Buffett, he's the one that says put all your eggs in one basket and watch the basket, right?
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
yeah, I think this whole diversification thing is something that put out by Wall Street for individuals to so they can get their money and put it into a fund or something like that, one of those investment funds. And really, you know what? I mean, everything I have is all in real estate. I don't own stocks. I don't think anything else like that. All
Me
of it's
too,
in real estate. But
because you
I
control
watch
real
my real
estate.
estate.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you control real estate. You could never control a stock. Yeah,
That's right.
but you're gonna be anxious. You're gonna pray a bit if the for the dividends to get paid or for the prices to go up or whatever. You're not in control. You're at the mercy of someone else's decision. You know.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Okay, HJ, for that investor, that listener listening in on this show right now, what is that one piece of bulletproof advice that you would give them?
I would say it's not likely repeating the Nike slogan, but just do it, man. Just do it. You know, because we always block ourselves by false beliefs, limiting beliefs. We cannot do it, limiting knowledge, no funds, whatever. Just do it. And then I tell them always follow three secrets. The power of leverage. You need to learn when you jump into this ocean, you need to learn how to leverage other people's knowledge. Example, watching this podcast or reading book, whatever. Other people's knowledge, connection, time, and most importantly, other people's money, like lending from the bank. The moment now you get the resources to do what you need to do to invest, secret number two is the power of having a system. I call it the McDonald's process because McDonald's throughout the world they have a solid process that they could apply anywhere in the world and achieve same results. So why not? Why don't we create a process for ourselves? And that's my secret recipe how I could really replicate my uh, having multiple properties in different countries. If I set to myself for myself a process and I follow it really thoroughly. it's like a Bible for me. You follow it to the rule. You don't have bypass. You don't try to be smart. You don't outsmart it or whatever. No, you play by the rules. And secret number three is the power of repetition. And I call it the Arnold Schwarzenegger reps, because Arnold Schwarzenegger was always preaching about, you need to keep on repeating to get the results, and those are the last few reps you do will get you the most of the results. And I that's how I see it also in rental properties. So once you have the resources, you have the process to follow. Now it's time for you to keep on repeating the same process over and over, one property at a time. And each property you're gonna get, we're gonna increase your net worth, it's gonna increase your cash flow, it's gonna create wealth for you. So, and you keep on repeating the same stuff until you get where you want to be. And for me, I follow the simple advice, and it has played very well so far. And I'm not planning to have any changes in it. And that's how I teach all my students on our coaching program as well.
Nice. Excellent. Well, that's very sound advice. Very sound advice. All right, guys. Well, if you want to reach out to HJ, you can reach him via his website at employeemillionaire.com. I hope you got some insight on how you can stay focused on achieving your objectives and dreams. And of course, building sound processes around what you're doing when it comes to your real estate portfolio. Thanks for tuning in. Take care, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the Bulletproof Cashflow podcast.